I'm standing behind the counter at a Copenhagen train station around 11 p.m. on a Thursday. It's quiet. Most of the evening rush has cleared out. Then this guy walks up, mid-40s, wearing a college hoodie and carrying two huge suitcases. He looks at the ticket machine, looks at me, and says, "Hey, do you take dollars here?" I blink. "Dollars? Yeah, American dollars. I figured you guys would, since it's the universal currency." I tell him we use Danish kroner. He stares at me like I just told him we use seashells. "But I'm American," he says, like that should change something about how currency works. He genuinely seems confused why his nationality doesn't grant him special payment privileges. It takes 15 minutes to direct him to the ATM around the corner. He keeps asking if I'm sure we don't have a way to just make it work. That same week, a woman at a cafe in Stockholm asks the barista why they don't have any normal coffee. The barista, confused, points to the menu listing 6 types of coffee. "No, like American coffee," she explains. "The kind that's actually drinkable." She's loud enough that half the cafe turns to look. 2 days later, I'm working a shift at a bookshop in Amsterdam. A tourist in his 60s picks up a Dutch history book, flips through it, and brings it to my register. He's frowning. "This whole book is in Dutch," he says. I tell him yes, it's a Dutch bookshop in the Netherlands. He looks genuinely annoyed. "Well, you should label that." I wasted 5 minutes looking at this. He seems to think the book being in Dutch is some kind of oversight we need to fix. My coworker in Prague told me about a guest at her hotel who insisted the front desk call the local government because someone needs to tell them their signs are wrong. What signs? Every road sign in the city. According to him, they were all pointing the wrong direction because he'd checked Google Maps and it didn't match. He stood in the lobby for 20 minutes explaining why check infrastructure needed American oversight. But that was just the beginning. What I've learned working in European tourism is that there's this whole category of American traveler who arrives here expecting the continent to reorganize itself around their presence. Not all of them, not even most of them, but enough that every person working in hotels, restaurants, train stations, and museums has a collection of stories. These aren't people being deliberately rude. They genuinely seem to believe that their arrival should trigger some kind of special accommodation protocol. Like Europe has been waiting for them to show up and explain how things should really work. The weird part? They're almost always surprised when it doesn't happen. I've been documenting these patterns for 3 years across 12 countries, and this is just the surface. If you want the kind of cross-cultural analysis most travel channels won't touch, subscribe. I publish deep dives like this weekly, and the people who follow this work, they're the ones who actually understand what's happening when cultures collide. I work part-time as a tour guide in Berlin, mostly doing walking tours of the city's historical sites. It's late March, weather's decent, and I've got a group of about 15 people. We're standing outside the Reichstag building. I'm explaining its history, the architecture, the glass dome. Standard tour stuff. This guy raises his hand. He's maybe 25, wearing a Yankees cap and carrying a Starbucks cup he brought from somewhere. "Quick question," he says. "When do we get to Paris?" I pause. "Sorry? Paris. I booked a Europe tour." "When do we see the Eiffel Tower?" I explain that this is a Berlin walking tour. Just Berlin. The itinerary he received was specifically for Berlin sites. Paris is about 1,050 kilometers away. He looks at his phone, zooms out on Google Maps, and seems genuinely startled to see the distance. "That's like a 2-hour drive though, right?" he asks. I tell him it's closer to 10 hours by car. He gets visibly frustrated. "Why would you call this a Europe tour then?" "That's false advertising." His girlfriend jumps in. "We wanted to see Europe." "Like all of it. Isn't that what people do?" I try to explain that Europe is not a city. It's a continent with over 40 countries. The guy interrupts. "Yeah, but they're small countries." How long does it really take? The rest of the tour group is staring now. Another tourist. A woman from Australia quietly says, "Mate, you can't see all of Europe in 3 days." The Yankees cap guy mutters something about how back home everything's accessible and spends the rest of the tour checking flight prices on his phone. That same month, I'm helping out at the information desk at Berlin's main train station. A woman in her 50s walks up with a printout of a booking confirmation. She's trying to get to a hotel in Vienna. She booked it for tonight. Right now, it's 4 p.m. I pull up train schedules and tell her the next direct train to Vienna leaves in 40 minutes. Takes about 4 hours. She'll get there around 8:30 p.m. She's shaking her head before I finish. No, I need to drive there. Where do I rent a car? I point her toward the car rental office downstairs. She comes back 20 minutes later looking annoyed. They want to charge me for an international drop-off fee. That's ridiculous. It's just Austria. I try to explain that Austria is a different country. So yes, there are fees for crossing borders with a rental car. She cuts me off. But you're all in the EU. Doesn't that mean it's basically the same place? I explain that the EU is an economic union, not a single country. Different nations still have different laws, systems, and rental policies. She's not buying it. This is exactly why America makes more sense. We figured out how to make everything one country. You guys should do that. She ends up taking the train, but complains to 3 different staff members about how inefficient Europe is for not having unified rental car policies. The irony of her complaining about efficiency while refusing to take the faster train. Option is not lost on anyone. I heard from a guy who works at the Budapest airport about an American family who showed up for a flight to Rome. They had 3 hours before boarding. The dad asked an airport employee if they could just drive there real quick and come back. When asked why, he explained they wanted to see the Colosseum, but didn't want to miss their flight home tomorrow. The employee pulled up a map. Rome is about 1,200 kilometers from Budapest. Minimum 13-hour drive one way. The dad stared at the screen, did some mental math, and said, "Well, that's bad planning on Europe's part. You should have built these cities closer together." My friend works at a tourist information center in Edinburgh. Last summer, a couple in their 30s came in asking for directions to Stonehenge. She politely explained that Stonehenge is in England, about 600 kilometers south. They'd need to take a train to London, then travel another couple of hours southwest. The woman looked confused. "But it's in the UK, right? And we're in the UK. So why is it so far?" My friend explained that the UK covers a fairly large area. The man jumped in. "Okay, but you're an island. How big can an island be?" We drove across Rhode Island in like 45 minutes. The woman kept insisting there must be a faster way. "Can't we just Uber there?" My friend showed them on a map how long the journey would take. The couple left disappointed, muttering about how travel websites don't make this stuff clear. They genuinely seemed to believe that because they'd entered the UK, they'd entered a zone where everything was equally accessible. Like a theme park. I work reception at a small hotel in Florence. It's a boutique place, family-run, about 20 rooms. We're fully booked most of the year. You have to reserve months in advance, especially in summer. One afternoon in June, a man walks in with no reservation. He's maybe 55, wearing a business suit, pulling one of those expensive hard-shell suitcases. He walks straight to the desk and says, "I need a room for 3 nights. I check the system. We're completely full. I tell him this apologetically and offer to call nearby hotels to check availability. He doesn't move, just stares at me. "You don't have anything." "I'm very sorry, sir. We're booked solid. It's peak season." He leans on the counter. "I'm from America." I'm not sure what response he's expecting, so I just nod. "Yes, sir. But we still don't have any available rooms." "Right. But I'm American. I flew all the way here. Can't you move some people around?" I blink. "Move people around?" "Yeah, like bump someone. I need the room more than they do. I'm only here for a few days." I explain that every guest has a confirmed reservation. We can't cancel someone else's booking because he arrived without one. He's getting visibly irritated now. This is insane. In America, businesses bend over backwards for customers. You guys just don't care about service. I offer again to help him find another hotel. He waves me off. Forget it. I'll find a place that understands hospitality. He leaves. 10 minutes later, he's back. Every nearby hotel is also full. He books a room at a chain hotel on the outskirts of the city for triple the normal rate and complains loudly in our lobby about how Florence isn't set up for tourists. The irony of a tourist complaining that a city famous for tourism isn't set up for tourists is completely lost on him. That same month, my cousin who works at a restaurant in Lyon deals with something similar. It's a small bistro, very traditional. Reservations strongly recommended. A couple walks in on a Saturday night around 8 p.m. with no reservation. The place is packed. My cousin apologizes and explains they're fully booked, but if they're willing to wait, they might have a table in about 90 minutes. The man looks around the restaurant like he's inspecting it. We're not waiting 90 minutes. We're from the States. We've been walking all day. My cousin apologizes again, but says there's nothing she can do. The woman chimes in. Can't you just add a table outside? We're fine with outdoor seating. My cousin explains that the outdoor area is also full and they don't have extra tables to add. Well, can you ask one of these tables if they're almost done? My cousin is stunned. Ask the other guests to hurry up? Yeah, we're really hungry. Some of these people have been here a while. They're completely serious. My cousin has to explain that no, they cannot ask paying customers to rush their meals to accommodate walk-ins. The couple leaves a 1-star review online saying the restaurant discriminates against Americans. A bartender I know in Krakow told me about a guest who got upset because they ran out of a specific imported beer. The guy insisted they go get more from the back. The bartender explained they were out completely, not just out at the bar. The customer's response, just send someone to buy more. I'll wait. When told that's not how bars work, he said, in America, the customer is always right. You guys need to learn that. My roommate works at a museum in Athens. Their policy is no flash photography because it damages the artifacts. It's clearly posted everywhere. An American tourist in his 40s is taking flash photos anyway. A guard politely asks him to stop. The guy turns off his flash for about 30 seconds, then turns it back on. The guard approaches again, more firmly this time. The tourist's response, I paid to get in here. That means I can take pictures however I want. That's how admission works. He cannot understand that paying admission doesn't override museum rules. He keeps insisting that customer rights mean he's entitled to photograph however he chooses. Eventually, security has to escort him out. He's shouting about lawsuits the entire way. The museum staff finds out later he posted on multiple travel forums, warning people that European museums don't respect photography rights and Americans should be careful about visiting. I'm working at a pharmacy in Oslo. It's a regular Tuesday afternoon, pretty quiet. A woman comes in, maybe late 30s, wearing athletic gear. She's got a prescription from an American doctor. She hands it to me and waits. I look it over and explain that we can't fill American prescriptions here. She'd need to see a Norwegian doctor to get a local prescription for the same medication. She's confused, but I have a prescription. Right here, from a real doctor. I explain that Norwegian pharmacies operate under Norwegian medical regulations. We can't fill prescriptions from foreign doctors without proper verification and approval. She's getting frustrated. This is ridiculous. It's the same medicine. Why does it matter where the doctor is from? I try to explain the legal and safety reasons, but she talks over me. In America, if you have a prescription, you get your medicine. Simple. You guys overcomplicate everything. I suggest she visit a local clinic or hospital to get a Norwegian prescription. She refuses. I'm not paying to see another doctor just to get permission for medicine I'm already prescribed. That's a scam. She stands at the counter for another 5 minutes trying different arguments. What if it's an emergency? It's not. Can't you just give me a few pills? No. Do you know how much I paid for this trip? Irrelevant. Finally, she leaves, muttering about how European healthcare is backwards compared to America. The irony of an American criticizing another country's healthcare system is not lost on the staff. These aren't isolated incidents. They're case studies in cultural assumptions. Every story I share here comes from direct sources: hotel workers, pharmacists, tour guides who live this daily. I don't just collect funny anecdotes. I track systemic patterns in cross-cultural friction. If that level of rigor matters to you, you're exactly who this channel is for. Subscribe for the kind of research-backed storytelling that doesn't show up on your feed by accident. That same week, a colleague at a different pharmacy deals with a tourist who wants to buy antibiotics over the counter. In Norway, you need a prescription for antibiotics. The guy cannot understand this. Why would I need a prescription for antibiotics? Just give me the normal ones. My colleague explains that antibiotics require a prescription because of antibiotic resistance, proper dosage, and medical oversight. The tourist's response: "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. In America, you can just buy them." Well, sometimes you need a prescription, but you can usually figure it out. My colleague points out that this is exactly why antibiotic resistance is a growing problem. The tourist is offended. Are you saying America has a problem? We have the best medical system in the world. He leaves without medication and later posts online that European pharmacies refuse to help Americans and suggests travelers bring extra antibiotics from home just in case. I know someone who works at a post office in Dublin. Last year, an American woman wanted to mail a package back to the US. Standard procedure. My friend weighs the package, calculates postage, tells her the price. The woman refuses to pay it. "That's way too expensive. How much is it if I use American stamps?" My friend is confused. "American stamps? Yeah, I brought stamps from home. Can I use those instead?" My friend explains that no, you cannot use American stamps for international mail sent from Ireland. The woman insists this doesn't make sense. But it's going to America, so American stamps should work. No amount of explanation about how postal systems work convinces her. She genuinely believes she's discovered a loophole that somehow the international postal system hasn't thought of. A guy who works at a bank in Lisbon told me about a customer who wanted to open a checking account, just a regular account. The process requires proof of address, identification, and typically a Portuguese tax number if you're a resident. The American customer has none of these things. He's on a 2-week vacation. The bank employee explains they can't open an account for a tourist passing through. The customer is baffled. Why not? I have money. You're a bank. This is what banks do. The employee tries to explain regulations around money laundering, tax compliance, and residency requirements. The customer waves this away. Those are your internal problems. I'm trying to give you business. He cannot grasp that banks have legal obligations beyond just accepting deposits. He spends 20 minutes arguing before finally leaving, telling the employee that American banks would never turn away a customer like this. The best story I have happened last September. I'm back at the train station in Copenhagen, working the late shift. It's about 10 p.m., and the station is mostly empty. This guy walks up, early 60s, wearing a Hawaiian shirt and cargo shorts despite the cold weather. He's got a map of Europe spread out on the counter, the old paper kind. He's got a pen, and he's drawn a route on it. "I need help planning my trip," he says. I look at the map. He's drawn a line that starts in Copenhagen, goes to Stockholm, then over to Helsinki, down through the Baltic states, across to Poland, through Germany, down to Switzerland, over to France, across to Spain, back up through France to Belgium, over to the Netherlands, and back to Denmark. The line is one continuous loop with no breaks. That's ambitious, I say carefully. How long are you here for? 10 days, I stare at him. 10 days? Yeah. So I figured the train system here is pretty good. I can just hop on and off, right? I pull out a calculator. His planned route is approximately 8,000 kilometers. Even if he spent every single second on trains traveling at average speeds, never stopping, never sleeping, never eating, it would take over 4 days of continuous movement. That leaves 6 days to actually visit 14 countries. About 10 waking hours per country, accounting for sleep. I try to explain this gently. I show him the distances, the travel times, the logical impossibility of what he's planning. He keeps interrupting. But the trains are fast here, right? High speed? Some are, I explain, but even high-speed trains can't bend physics. He's undeterred. Okay, what if I skip the small countries? Just do the important ones. I ask which countries he considers important. He points to France, Germany, Spain, and Italy. Still completely impossible in 10 days if he wants to actually see anything. He's getting frustrated with me now, like I'm being deliberately difficult. Look, I don't need to see everything. Just the main highlights. How hard can that be? I try a different approach. I pull up actual train schedules, showing him that just getting from Copenhagen to Stockholm to Helsinki and back would eat up 3 full days of travel, leaving 7 days for 11 more countries. He stares at the schedules like they're lying to him. This can't be right. It is, I'm afraid. He sits there for a moment, looking at his map. Then he says, completely serious, "You know what Europe's problem is? You guys don't have a proper interstate system. If you built some real highways and connected everything properly, this wouldn't be an issue." I don't know what to say. He's sitting in one of the most interconnected regions in the world, with high-speed rail, extensive highways, open borders, and cheap flights, complaining that we haven't made our infrastructure convenient enough for his 10-day whirlwind tour. He seems to believe that the only reason he can't visit 14 countries in 10 days is because Europe failed to plan ahead for his arrival. He eventually leaves with a revised itinerary that's still wildly unrealistic, but at least mathematically possible. As he walks away, he turns back and says, "You should really tell your government about the highway thing. Americans figured it out decades ago. These stories keep coming. Every shift brings a new one. Someone who thought Poland and Portugal were neighboring countries. A guest who couldn't understand why their hotel in Rome didn't have a view of the Mediterranean. A tourist who insisted that Europe should have more authentic American restaurants because you can't find good burgers here. The strange thing is, these aren't bad people. They're just operating on an assumption so deeply ingrained they don't even realize it's there. That their way of doing things is the default, the standard, the correct version. And when they encounter a different way, it doesn't register as different. It registers as wrong, as incomplete, as something that needs American input to fix. And these stories? They never stop coming. There's always another train station, another hotel lobby, another confused tourist, wondering why the world didn't reorganize itself before they arrived. I've built this channel to document what most people only experience in fragments. The full architecture of cross-cultural collision. Every week I break down a different pattern, language traps, infrastructure assumptions, service culture clashes. The subscribers here aren't passive viewers. They're pattern recognizers who see the systems behind the stories. If that's your speed, subscribe. Because tomorrow, there'll be another story. And you'll want the framework to understand why it keeps happening. Because they'll be here tomorrow.